Welcome to the latest match preview here on Stones TV and the Maidstone United podcast, where we look ahead to the FA Cup clash with the Stones heading ever so slightly east for a place in qualifying round 3 against Folkestone Invicta. So firstly to the Horsham game, and we said last time we were here it could get worse before it gets better. We've now conceded 3 in each of the last 3 games, as well as suffering consecutive 3-0 defeats. It's not ideal preparation for an FA Cup derby match, Nigel. 3-0 Horsham, a very correct scoreline.
Yeah, it was a weird performance, wasn't it? I mean, we just never got going, did we? I mean, I think that first 10 minutes we looked okay, and Dion had that chance, that header at the back post, and you thought, okay, we're settling into the game well here, but yeah, as soon as we went behind, there was just no reaction, was there? It was very normally you see a little bit of a reaction, and then we obviously conceded that second goal just before half time, and then you think, okay, we're gonna come out second half all guns blazing, and there was just nothing, was there? There was just nothing there. You've seen it many times, haven't you? And you get that early goal, first 10 minutes of the second half, and it kind of sets you up, doesn't it? Because then the other team sort of wobble a little bit, and if you can get another quick one, very similar to what Worthing done to us the previous week, wasn't it? When they went 2-0 up, they managed to get that goal at the right time, just before half time, and then it set it up for them to come back into the game. But literally there was just nothing there, wasn't it? And George alluded to it on his interview, and probably a little bit of soul searching to be done. I mean, Alexis hasn't played the last few games, has he? And I can't see that we can miss a player that much.
Just one, yeah,
Do you know what I
exactly.
mean?
Exactly.
It's a collective, isn't it? And like George has always said, we win as a team, we lose as a team. So
Exactly.
There's a lot of soul searching there. A lot of players that were hitting the straps early doors have just slacked off a little bit. I think it was one of those games where we had too many players not on their game, and it just and like Joe and Fred said on commentary, a team like Horsham that have come up, you see a lot of it these early fixtures, don't you? You do see it. They've got that momentum, but as soon as they got that early goal, it gives them a foothold in the game and something to play for, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And
they played it to a T, and they thoroughly deserved their victory, and the manner of the scoreline was deserved as well. It was there's no arguments. You can't. There's nothing you can say. Maybe if that had happened, or
Yeah.
Again, it was. We keep alluding to it, don't we? But as Jay says, he's upcoming. It's one of those. But hopefully, it is one of those. And
quick word on TJ Bramble, Nigel. His performances throughout August saw him win Player of the Month, cementing his status by actually scoring a penalty for Maidstone as well. Your thoughts on his August?
Was great, wasn't it? I mean, we said it. He was one of our picks when we did the nominations video and for the Player of the Season, and he started really well. That was coming off the back of a good pre-season as well, wasn't he? He played the majority of the games. He played the majority of the minutes. I think he might have been subbed once, maybe, but he's been a never present there, hasn't he? And again, like we've just said with the Horsham, he's one of those players that just dipped a little bit off of that high bar that he set himself, and that collective, and it just shows you that how important these players are, and how when we're winning games and how much control you have on a game. I mean, probably the case in point was that Tottenham one, wasn't it? You know what I mean? It's like that was a good defensive display because it was literally back to the wall, and people like that stood up and were counted. But you just got to keep doing that, haven't you? You've just got to these big players that have come in, and they just need to keep performing. And he did that very well in August, and really deserving of his Player of the Month award.
Certainly was. So another new body has come in then, Nigel. Teo Kurtaran is someone that the Stones have had their eye on for a little while. They beat Yeovil to his signature from the league above. He showed good moments in his sub-appearance against Horsham. Your thoughts on his acquisition?
Yeah, it looks a really good and positive signing, doesn't it? I mean, if we are to take any positive out of that Horsham game, I think Teo coming on did sort of settle us down a little bit more. We looked a lot more composed on the ball, I would say. He's got a good sort of that centre of gravity, and he can get out of a tight situation and get a pass off. And
good distribution.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully he can, with a few more training sessions under his belt, and as he gets to know the players, because obviously he's come from abroad. He was playing in Poland last season, so he's not going to have been playing with a lot of these players.
Promoted there, I think you told me.
I think they was, I think they got promoted to the main league in Poland, whatever they call themselves. But so he was part of that winning culture. So that's obviously, I know it's a different country, but
still football.
That winning mentality, isn't it? So hopefully he can sort of bring that to the team. And as I say, once he gets to train with these players on a daily basis, and he just becomes more integrated into our systems, he can become another big player for us.
Yeah. So to our hosts, inverted commas for those listening, on Friday night, Folkestone Invicta. The goalkeeper is Ted Collins, formerly of Colchester. He signed from Chelmsford over the summer. He did play against the Stones last season and kept a clean sheet back in January. We remember that night well, Nigel, don't we? Yes.
Yeah, we kept a clean sheet.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, not the best, as it says here, not the best of games to watch, but certainly one when the keepers were on top. That's a slight understatement, I think.
Yeah, definitely. He's solid enough, isn't he? Had a good record against the Stones last season, didn't he? So almost played 180 minutes, was it? Because Aaron Blair got that goal in the Chelmsford game really early on, didn't he? So, that's obviously good confidence to have, and they started well, haven't they, folks? And they've got a couple of good results on the board, and like we've said with all these keepers, that it breeds confidence, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm sure he'll be a potential wall when he's looking to get a clean sheet against us on Friday evening. Yeah,
it's Friday. Yeah, we'll remind you of that several times here. Don't worry. So in terms of that solid wall in front of Ted Collins, the defence, Ollie Black is formerly of Hastings and Worthing. He signed in the summer. Ben Mason has National League South experience with both Hemel and Farnborough, as well as gaining promotion with Braintree Town. He marked his debut against St Albans with an injury time winner. Montel McKenzie joined from Billericay Town, where he made 34 appearances in all competitions last season. Joel Michael Adeniran is one of 4 players retained from last season. He split his time between Herne Bay and Invicta during the last season. Dylan Simmons, a 16-year-old defender that Jay Saunders has known half his life. Youngsters. He's expecting to be loaned out at some point, he said, but he's been in most matchday squads so far this season, despite the competition around him. Liam Smith joined from Sittingbourne in the summer after helping them get to the last 8 of the FA Trophy last season. And lastly, ex-Stone against the Stones, Kevin Locko was Jay Saunders' first signing and has been made club captain for 25-26. He scored his first goal for the club in a 2-1 win, funnily enough, at Chatham Town last month. So Nigel, some big names with some big experience above and beyond their current division.
Yeah, exactly, isn't it? I think for me that the Kevin Locko signing, when Jay made him his first signing,
I think statement's probably the word, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know what the rest of the league would have thought about that, fellow fans of the rest of the league, but from a Stones perspective, obviously with the attachment we've got with Jay, and we know the sort of players that he likes to bring in, and Kevin Locko is just like, he was his first signing. I think it was the first signing we made when we got to the National League.
Quite possibly, yeah.
That season after we beat Ebbsfleet in the playoff final, wasn't it? And he had a previous season in Welling, and he was just like rock solid, wasn't he? Yeah. I think he made one mistake. I remember we went. It was a Macclesfield on a Tuesday night after we did that Gateshead game where we virtually secured our safety. Yeah. I think it was just one of those where you switched off and you made a back pass that didn't quite get there. But other than that, he was faultless, wasn't he? He was proper leader at the back, and I know he was never captain for us as such, but a lot of big characters in that side, didn't you? With the likes of Reece Prestige and Stuart Lewis, and he was integral in that early season, that first season of keeping us in the league, and and he was all set to go for the second season, wasn't he? We'd done the kit launch with him as with the player, and then John Steele sort of got him at Dagenham, didn't he, via Steve or whatever the scenario was there. But yeah, I mean, he would have been a big player for us, that second season, and I've no doubt that we would have been strong contenders as well, because he was just solid in that defence, wasn't he? And he's just become another one of those fans' favourites, didn't he? In his time here, I mean, he just and even since then, most of his career's been in the National League since he's left Maidstone. He went to Dover and Maidenhead, so he's virtually stepped down 2 levels, hasn't he, to play for Folkestone, and then essentially play for Jay as well. And that just shows you what these how these players develop these bonds with these managers. So if the budget's there for them, they're going to go with what they know and what they feel comfortable with, and it brings the best out of them as well. So yeah, it's only going to be a stern test, isn't it? I'm just focused on one player, but he's obviously the one that we know most about, isn't he? So they've started really well, so he's integral into that.
It's a Maidstone podcast and video. We'll look at mostly Maidstone stuff,
exactly.
even if it's about opponents.
And obviously Jay sees him as a big character because he's made him captain. So you're bringing your team together. You're going to go with somebody that's behind the scenes, that's going to get all these new players and some of the ones that have been there before under the old sort of manager and that. You've got to bring them into. Jay knows what he wants from the dressing room, doesn't he? Being the next player himself, and he's just somebody that he trusts, and they've started really well.
Certainly have. In the midfield, Mikey Berry joins from Tunbridge Angels, where he played under Jay, the second time he signed him this calendar year. Ronnie Dolan is starting his 10th season with Folkestone. His first 9 came between 2014 and 2023, and is their 11th highest appearance maker of all time, looking to make a top 10 entry before season end, no doubt. Max Manctalo came in on a 1-month loan from Ebbsfleet United in the middle of August, but he returned to Stonebridge Road on Tuesday this week. He signed off with a goal in a 4-1 win last weekend against Whitehawk. Ex-Stone against the Stones, Dean Rance is in his 3rd season with the Seasiders and was made vice-captain this summer. He is one of 4 players retained from last season's squad. Jeremy Santos, a product of Charlton Athletic, and has spent most of the last 3 seasons at Tunbridge Angels working with Jay Saunders amongst others. Donnell Thomas is a product of Colchester United's academy system. He departed there last summer, joining Bowers and Pitsey before spending the second half of the season with Cheshunt. Brad Warledge is a product of Folkestone Invicta's youth setup and a former scholar of Folkestone Invicta Academy. Jack Jebb was one of those, I keep mentioning them, 4 players that were retained from last season. He came on as a last-minute substitute during the 2014 FA Cup first round replay for Stevenage against the Stones when Jay was manager here. Nigel, football, you gotta love it. The research, I'll put it in. I'll put the work in, boys and girls.
Yeah, I know. It's just again, you just reading that through that list. This makes this such a hard podcast to do, isn't it? Because they're so familiar players, and Dean Rance. I think every summer that Jay was here, when we sort of got to the National League, Dean Rance was linked with us, wasn't he?
Maidstone, born and bred here.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. It never happened that he actually came here, but it's been close so many times. And Jack Jebb, I mean, not just at Stevenage. We talked about him coming to here with Stevenage in the FA Cup and coming on the last minute, but when he was at Dorking, he was a proper fall in the side, wasn't he? And I think at Dartford, when that 4-0 game in the FA Cup, I think he scored a goal there. So again, all these players they're players that Jay trusts, isn't they? You know that when you see these players in the summer and they become available, you think, that's a Jay signing. Do you know what I mean? You just know it. They've got the DNA and the blueprint, and you know that you can trust them. So when you're going into a new club like that, it's a step down from the level that he's been used to managing in. But he's managed to, because of he's got a budget. We don't know what it is, but he's got a budget to be able to bring these players down, and they're coming down because of Jay, because they trust in Jay, and they know how that he gets the best out of them. And it's going to be a daunting task, because they're not. Again, it could be a National League South fixture, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They've got the talent throughout the spine of that squad, along with the younger players that have been there and come up from the academies and come from like you say, the Colchester academies, and local academies and that, and they're just developing. They've just got that mix of experience and youth, and they've got a good team there, and we haven't even come to the forwards yet.
Yes, more on them in just a second. So up front, winger Kweku Lucan had a little over 2 or 3 weeks with Folkestone, scored on his debut and then left the club last week. Jake Hutchinson joined from National League Southside Enfield Town after departing the North London club at the end of the 24-25 campaign. He scored against Jay's Tunbridge side last season. Josh Strouts is formerly of Folkestone Invicta Youth, as well as Maidstone, Gillingham and Chatham Town academies. Eddie Youssef was one of 4 players retained from last season. That's the final one, don't worry. He's a man with a long list of former clubs, too many to mention here before kick-off, plus 3 spells, 200 appearances plus and 100 plus goals for Invicta, 5 of those this season already. And finally, another ex-Stone against the Stones, one certain Joe Pigott, a man I watched win promotion to League One with AFC Wimbledon at Wembley under 4 months ago. Drops 4 levels to sign for his former Stones manager and his current club after leaving his then parent club, Leyton Orient, in the summer. Nigel, only one place to start for any Stones fan discussing the Seasiders front line, but I think you alluded to it earlier with Loco. Stones defence can't be thinking about just him come Friday night.
Yeah, a lot of fans will be focused on him, won't they?
They will be.
Mr. Joe Pigott. Oh, God. It's one of those ones that breaks. I mean, it would be. Kind of look at it. I mean, we love Joe, don't we? I've got a wall up on a framed shirt up on my wall.
It's not just me doing the spoonerisms then. Yeah. I'm glad you got a wall up on your shirt. Lovely.
Yeah, I've got a framed shirt up on my wall.
That's it.
Of Joe Pigott. Yes. His last time at the club, and prior to that Ipswich game, he was the hero, wasn't he? At Cheltenham, which most sort of Stones fans would say was their favourite FA Cup game prior to that. So, but then say you look through the team, and he hasn't had a lot of football in the recent seasons, has he, Joe? Yeah. But again, that was the case when he came to us from Cambridge because of Jay, wasn't it? Yeah. So, he's obviously somebody that he trusts, and he's gone there because he's got that relationship. But then you only have to look at players like Eddie Youssef, a bit of a Folkestone legend. Like you say, over 100 goals for him, and he had a lot of clubs, but it's mainly Folkestone that he's associated with. And then you've got Jack Hutchinson again, probably playing a couple of levels down from what his talent was. I mean, a few years ago he was playing at Aldershot in the National League. Ironically, I think he was kind of replaced at Aldershot when Jack Burham went in there. But he was still in and around that level. So again, another player that is kind of finding his feet, and as I say, playing a few levels below what his talent probably deserves. And they've got threats all over the pitch, haven't they? There, so it's definitely a National League South team playing in the Ryman League, isn't it? So, but like you say, it's the FA Cup, isn't it? We're going in there as a higher placed team, but because of the Kent derby and the sort of the links there, you can't call it, can you? It's like one of those that, yes, it's the magic of the FA Cup, but where's the magic going to lie? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a one-off game, and like we've always said, and we said it in a lot of our previews, George is very good at these one-off games. He's good at getting the players up for one-off games. He sets up to, be defensively sound and then try and catch teams on the break. And I think that's kind of like could work in our favour after, because he's got to be defensive, hasn't he? After conceding 9 goals in 3 games. Yeah. There's certainly going to be he's looking for a reaction, and probably what better game to have for that. It's the players are going to be under no illusions as to the magnitude of it. They've all come here. When John done those 10 things about Maidstone, every one of the players tell us something about Maidstone. They got to the 5th round in the FA Cup, so that burden of history is either going to be sort of like lift them up and they want a piece of it themselves, or it's going to be something that's going to just crush them. And hopefully we're going to get the players up. I would imagine we would have more fans there than what that Folkestone would have, and probably more than we would take to a ground if it was down on the east coast of Kent. So yeah, no excuses really. You know, it's now or never, isn't it, for a lot of these players? You know, it's the opportunity, and you know, throughout our history, we're a club that's built on our FA Cup reputation.
Yes.
You know, so whatever is going on sort of behind the scenes, it's now time to sort of like let's come together as a collective, and you know, it's just about getting into that hat for the next round, isn't it? That's the most important thing, and then you can build from there. You can go on from there, and then you know, hopefully that translates into the league performances, and you know, it's all going to be on the line, I think, Friday night.
Yeah, it's the bounce we need. So to the Invicta form book this season, and so far a pair of 1-1 draws to open their league campaign. Since those 4 league wins on the spin, one of those was a win at Chatham Town, previously mentioned. That might come in handy. They had a 3-0 home win against Sevenoaks in the FA Cup, squeezed into that run too. Nigel, we always say that form goes out the window in the Cup, but 5 wins in a row for the Seasiders. Does that give them favourite status perchance?
I don't know about the favourite status, but it's certainly going to give them confidence of going into there, isn't it?
Certainly is.
So, you know, it's. I don't know. I never like to. I never like to, you know, go against Maidstone because, you know, you've always got to think positive, and you know. But yeah, I think it's a leveler. I think it's going to be one of those. Like I said, they've got a packed squad of experience. They've probably got more experience than in that squad than what Maidstone have got.
Yeah.
But you know, it's the FA Cup. It's a one-off game, and like I say, this is it. Time to deliver.
Bring it on. So the head-to-head record between these sides, there have been numerous pre-season encounters, certainly the last 2 decades or so. 9 games in the league between 2007 and 2013. 4 Stones wins, only one of those was an away win. 3 Folkestone wins, 2 of those at home, leaving 2 2-2 draws a month apart in 2013 before a third match in the 3 months to finish that season in the playoffs. 2 FA Cup encounters, most prominently, one in 1971 where Folkestone earned a 2-0 home win, then one 9 years later where the Stones won 2-0 at Folkestone. So Nigel, best of 3 in the FA Cup, winner takes all, but 2-0 someone seems a likely result looking at the history there.
Yeah, it does, exactly. And I just a thought come to my head there. First time I saw Maidstone play against Folkestone was in that playoff semi-final when we was in the Ryman South.
Yes.
And the last league game we had that season was at home to Horsham. Admittedly, we did win that game, but I think we did win that game, didn't we? I know we had to. It was in Dulwich's hands, wasn't it, to win the league, and they duly got the result they wanted. Yeah. But yeah, and Adi Odoronda, you know, the player from the past, stepped up, and you know, he was the playoff hero there, wasn't he? And yeah, so let's hope that sort of history repeats itself there, and we get a win. But like you say, they're just 2 proper Kent teams. You know, a lot in common, not just the colour of the kit they play in, and you know, they've had a spell of like Neil Cugley as their sort of like you know, manager down there, didn't they? And they've had their troubles as well, like dropping down the leagues, and you know, and even going back to Oliver, that was one of the first games at Hawaii when he went to invest in Maidstone and buy the club, because he went to that game that we had to win to stay in the Ryman Premier that season. Yeah, we did, didn't we? We won it on the last day and managed to stay in the league. So yeah, so a lot of history and a lot of big games, you know, throughout the long history of football in Kent. So yeah, let's hope we're going to have another positive chapter to that this coming Friday.
Yeah, that's the hope. So the former Stones manager has been mentioned already here, maybe once or twice. So let's compare the FA Cup records of both men while at Maidstone. Jay Saunders took charge of 28 games across 7 seasons in the FA Cup. 18 wins, 7 defeats, naturally. Spoiler alert, he didn't win the FA Cup while he was here. And 3 draws to get to some replays. Whilst George Ellacobi has taken charge of 12 games across 2 seasons, 10 wins and 2 losses. Again, Spoiler alert, didn't win the FA Cup yet, either man. Who knows? You never know. George, of course, with a 5th round appearance a couple of seasons ago, taking us to the 3rd round for the first time in 36 years. Jay took us to the 1st round for the first time in 23 years. Gave us memorable trips to Stevenage, Wrexham, Cheltenham, MK Dons. Both have played, as you've already said, Nigel, a huge part in the recent Maidstone United Cup history.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Honestly, it is going to be a game that tugs at your heartstrings, isn't it? Because, you know, all those players we mentioned there, they were fans' favourites. There's no one there that you think, oh yeah, you know, you love them when they're in a Maidstone shirt, but hate them when they go away. There's not, you know, even with Jay, you know, it's like, you know, most Maidstone fans, or every Maidstone fan, I wouldn't think there's any that sort of like have got a bad word to say. You know, he was literally, yeah, it's just like John Steele said, you know, Maidstone should put a statue up outside the Gallagher for Jay Saunders for what he did, and you know, in those years before we came home and keeping the club, you know, prominent, and then we came home and we had that run through the leagues and that 4 in 5 or whatever it was, 3 in 4, whatever it was, the promotions, and it was just like memories after memories after memories. But then George has come in and done exactly the same. So
most successful cup manager in Maidstone history,
of
course.
Exactly. So it's just going to be one of those games, isn't it? You know, when we always allude to Jay, it's one of those, and it is one of those.
Literally,
it is one of those.
Can't avoid it this time, can we?
But yeah, it's just going to be all on the line, and it's just like I say, it's whoever wants it the most, isn't it? It's going to be that game, that kind of a game.
Definitely. So remember, if you can't make the shorter than expected journey to the game, normally we would say tune into Stones Live on Friday, but the facilities seem to not be allowing this currently. So keep an eye on the socials for an alternative for you to listen to, if any. Regardless, you'll see myself and himself, Mr. Nigel, on the hot take, and then you won't hear us on the highlights once they go online. Yet more Cup action to mention. We found out the identity of our Kent Senior Cup hosts this Tuesday night just gone. Cray hosted Herne Bay and the visitors won 2-0. So they will host us in the near future in the 2nd round. Details of when that will take place will be on the club website and socials in due course. And yet more 2nd round qualifying action, I hear you cry. Oh yes, well here it is. An update on Maidstone's women. They won their opening match 5-1 at Oxted and District last weekend in the FA Cup. Their reward is a home tie against Richmond and Kew in the next qualifying round. That will be played on the 21st of September. A week before that, this coming Sunday, their next match is a trip down to Margate, not the Costa Brava. That is the first of their 18 league games this season. Kick-off is at 4:30 at Hartsdown Park. More details, as ever, on the club website and the socials. So we could be back here on Tuesday for a replay. We could be out or through come 10 p.m. on Friday. The joys of qualifying rounds and actual cup replays if or when required. Hope your Premier League pre-season tours abroad were worth it, big boys. That's a quick rant over and done with. Our thanks to you all out there as ever for watching or listening to the latest preview. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, just search for the Maidstone United podcast. See or hear you for our next preview ahead of another league home game against a similarly named side. Maidenhead United. Easily done. And as always,
come on, you Stones!